Hello, and welcome to another AMA with the Pangolin Exchange team. Today, we'll be talking with Leo, the community manager, Harry, the project manager, and Brandon, our lead developer. It's been an exciting week. We have a SEX listing on Gate.io, our first time listing on a centralized exchange, and we've made some impactful rewards updates too, particularly the AVAX PNG pair to 10x. So let's field some questions from the community on Telegram. Question is, what does the Pangolin team think of Trader Joe? Ooh, kind of a controversial topic. Brandon, you want to take this one?
Sure. So as someone who's not on Twitter all that often, I definitely enjoy hopping on there and seeing some spicier conversations. And Trader Joe seems to definitely be bringing those at the front of the pack. So I'm all for it. Like, I know Leo has also expressed this opinion that competition is not bad. If Trader Joe's got some innovative ideas like they're posting on Twitter, that's awesome. That's going to be great for the entire space. It's kind of yet to be seen if there'll be, how direct they might be as a competitor for Pangolin, and if they have some of the same or similar offerings or not. Being on the team here, I get to see what we've got in the oven already cooking. And so I can weigh that against what I see from Trader Joe. And, when they all come to market, we'll see who wins there. Personally, I'm Team Pangolin, so I'm not really afraid, but I welcome it.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think I have the most exposure to the Twitter battles, or whatever you want to call it, between Pangolin and Trader Joe. So I have a personal history with CryptoFish. We worked together on two other projects, Snowball, Sherpa, and CryptoFish started Trader Joe. So it's all in good fun, these jabs that you kind of see publicly. And a lot of the criticism is, it's valid, because Pangolin did not have a team to take it in a good direction for a while governance was getting set up, and a lot of the community, our own community, shares its sentiments. So, I think calling out a project where it can improve is good for everyone, and I appreciate them doing that. And as for competition, competing dexes, more dexes on the space is a good thing to me. Users get a choice about what kind of community they want to join, what features they want to use in a DEX. I know Trader Joe's building some really cool analytics tools and advanced trading features, which some users don't need, but other users really like. And then as for, is this dangerous to Pangolin to have a strong DEX? I think it's actually really good. If you look at other ecosystems, like let's take Matic or Polygon, for example. They have both QuickSwap and SushiSwap, who are very strong dexes, and they actually build upon each other and bring more users into the ecosystem. So really excited to see projects like Trader Joe do cool things. I know they have a really strong and solid team, and we talk to them, and we're on a friendly basis. So for those not in the know, we're not beefing. It's mostly just good fun for us. And Harry, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like CryptoFish is awesome. Like yeah, dude. Like that guy came up with like Sherpa's kind of brand voice. So like when Sherpa first started, CryptoFish came in and we worked together. And like he came up with the concept of like Sherpas helping and being your friendly guide up the mountain. So like a lot of that stuff comes from that dude, right? So like, of course we're not enemies. Like he's a cool dude, and like we welcome it.
No, that's a good question. And the next one is kind of along the lines of, will you bring innovation before Trader Joe steals all the volume? And I guess I'll leave that to Brandon to answer.
Sure. We've got our short-term roadmap out there that we're already iterating on. Some things in there like sex listings, single-sided staking, and you're seeing some of these things also from competing projects in the space. But I think, whether we're bringing that innovation, Trader Joe, would it be anybody, I think that will bring more people to Avalanche. And I think we can compete for that, a lot easier once they're here for everybody. So as far as some innovative ideas, we've been tossing around some things around different ways to incentivize pools, which is something myself and Justin and Leo haven't seen anywhere implemented otherwise. The idea being kind of allowing alternative methods from PNG emissions to incentivize rewards that would be more sustainable and would also involve other projects in the space. So if that were to come to fruition, I think that would be something particularly innovative that would put Pangolin at the front for that.
Great. Thanks for that information. Yeah. How about you, Harry? Anything to share about innovation?
Yeah, it's a key thing for us, obviously, innovation. We kind of have to balance innovation with partnerships. So some of the innovation is going to be reliant on partnerships. Bankies come in, and we met them the other day. They're a great bunch. Me and Leo met with Chainlink this morning. So a lot of that innovation we're starting to talk about. We're also starting to talk about what's possible. I think everyone's going to be very pleasantly surprised. I'd just like to make sure that everyone's aware that when we write new code, we have to get it audited, right? So yeah, we can innovate, but we don't want to innovate at the cost of, and I'll probably say this way too many times, but we don't want to innovate at the cost of our users losing money. So I just got a quote from Trail of Bits this morning, and they literally only have availability for auditing in January. So Trail of Bits is like the gold standard in auditing firms. So we're obviously not going to wait until January, but it just means that, that kind of gives people the idea, or at least you can realize how in demand auditors are. And until we have new code audited, we won't be able to push to production.
Yeah, that's a really good warning that a lot of people might not realize on the engineering side is some projects can move very fast. They can come up with an idea and deploy it live the next day, but that speed comes at the cost of testing, of audits, making sure funds are safe and things work properly. So it's a balance for sure between moving fast and building safely, which this team, with all their years of experience in traditional software, in DeFi software on various teams, I think this team definitely knows how to find that balance. So good answers, guys, and nice question. Okay, the next question is going to be from Mirat. Nice to meet you. So they're saying being listed on Gate.io is a good move. At the same time, leveraging pool rewards was also another giant step. Is this a strategy to prevent the sell pressure and keep people in the PNG pools? Yeah, I can touch on this one, and then we'll hear from the rest of the team too. The feedback we got from the community, and like we said earlier, we are a very community-driven project. Our vision is driven a lot by the feedback from the community, and it's that some of the pools are being disproportionately rewarded, some of the non-PNG pools. And we want to encourage more people to get into the PNG pairs, specifically the AVAX PNG pair, which is why we decided to change that one to the highest, as well as kind of focus more on these native projects getting rewarded, such as Snowball, Verso, and more to come. What about you guys, Brandon and Harry? What do you think?
Yeah, I think ultimately leveraging pool rewards is another lever we can push in order to affect supply and demand, right? If we think of it from an economic point of view. So yeah, I think it's great. I mean, Connor did a great job in implementing that. I think we owe a lot of gratitude to Connor and Druba for writing a lot of that code and helping us out. So. I think it's a great tool, and we're very grateful that they contributed.
Sure, it's definitely a lever. We try and use those to the best benefit of Pangolin and PNG holders that we can. Something on my kind of middle term roadmap here is to make those levers more accessible to the greater community. So right now there's a pretty steep barrier to get in there and make your proposal and make your voice heard in a way that will actually execute some code to change those settings. And so Leo's done awesome at kind of getting a wider vibe from the community of what they're looking to do, And if we can, help push that through or support that, like, that's what you hired us for, to make that process as easy as it can be.
Oh, thanks for the insight, guys. That was a good question. Appreciate that. Okay, the next question is from Peter. Hello, Peter. Question is, if we were to experience a prolonged bear market where P&G price, also known as your salaries, were to decrease substantially, how prepared is the team to stay the course in making Pangolin a long-term success? Harry, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's going to be a bear market at some point, right? I think everyone's well aware of that. I mean, for me personally, I guess it comes down to a few things, right? So there's intrinsic motivations and extrinsics. So monetary rewards is an extrinsic motivator, whereas intrinsic motivator is you love what you do and you can't get enough of it. And personally, DeFi is the most fun I've ever had in a career. Like I just love it, right? So I think if you've got that intrinsic motivator, it's definitely gonna that's the type of thing you need to get through in times of lean. For me personally, we've got a healthy budget at the moment. We've got a healthy treasury, and a bear market in some ways is actually preferable for builders, right? You avoid maybe some of the more what's a delicate way to put it? You avoid some of the bigger distractions, and you can actually focus on building. So, like, I'm not worried about it at all, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah, I kind of mirror the same point. All three of us came out here before there was any talk of positions or salaries, and we were putting in some hours just of free time. Really, the hiring of the core team, that aspect of it, was to allow more time to actually do this in a better capacity. So, for instance, I've left my day job to free up more time to do this because I enjoy it. If the bear market comes and there's less pressure, I think that opens the avenue to kind of take some stress off and really buckle in and do some things. At least from a development standpoint, the bulk of the great work I get to do is on the days when I can plug in some headphones, put my head down, and kind of iterate on some concepts. And when the market's really hot, there's a lot more distractions, as I already mentioned, going around. There's more people that want to get in on the action when things are going up. And sometimes that can take away from actual progress.
Yeah, those are great answers. And I just kind of want to call out as well and echo the sentiment that, the core team here, we're building Pangolin because we want to see Pangolin succeed, because we want to see the Avalanche ecosystem as a whole succeed. And the reason that Pangolin could survive for 3 months without a full-time team is because of people like Brandon, like Harry, who are working, for free, tirelessly behind the scenes, making sure the website's up and updated and fixing bugs. Also on the administrative side, Hari has been pushing for a sex listing weeks before he got hired. And my favorite story is Brandon just working the weekend as to fix Pangolin governance because no one was around to fix it, and there was a vote up and nobody could vote on it, and he was up till like 4 a.m. trying to fix that. So I think it's just that kind of dedication and as Hari said, intrinsic motivation of people that we want to bring on board and work with, people who aren't here because they want to get paid, but because they want to build cool products, because DeFi is amazing, and because we think there's a great future at Avalanche and we want to be a part of it. Good question, though. Okay. So the next one is from AE. How do you envision the Pangolin DEX after 15 years? Who wants to take this one?
Can I take it? I think it's impossible. I don't think anyone could predict. I mean, if you think so, what are we in now? So, how long has the internet been around? Like, the internet's probably only been around in a commercial setting for 30 years. So 15 years, DeFi is going to be. I think it'll be mainstream. I think like so I think the UX will improve significantly. I think that's one of the main kind of key areas where DeFi is struggling is, you go look at some of the DeFi protocols on Ethereum and you can see it's built by developers. It's obvious it's built by developers. And it's hard to use. It can be quite intimidating. So I definitely think it will be, whether it's on mobile, whether mobile will even exist, or whether we'll have virtual reality or augmented reality. It'll probably be something as simple as, you wake up in the morning and you want to make a trade and you probably just say the word, or you'd have some kind of like augmented reality within your apartment that then would probably buy it for you. I don't know, man. It's too exciting and too out there to really know.
That's a phenomenal comparison with 15 years of DeFi to 30 years of the internet, in that commercial capacity. I think looking ahead 5 years in DeFi is going to be insane, right? I like to think of it as removing the middleman. You've got individual users and services, and DeFi is kind of that direct avenue without having someone sit there in the middle and say, I don't think you're allowed to do this. DeFi will, check you on some couple of parameters and say, yep, you're good. Hop on in. And I think that's enticing to a lot of people who have had that no from their bank or their loan or their job or their subscription or whatever they were looking to get access to. So I'd like to think on Avalanche that DeFi, is more 1 year, will be looking different as far as we get into the capacity that Avalanche has for subnets. I don't think that's been explored so much in other networks. That's something we have that could be unique here.
Yeah, that's a great question. We all think Avalanche is the best L1 to build on, and there's so many great things you can do here. We're really excited to see our own project and all the other projects building here. So good question, and thanks for the answers. I just wanted to jump back to the intrinsic motivation. I forgot to give credit to a lot of the other people in the ecosystem helping out. Our moderators, we have a strong moderating team. Xavier on Telegram, Sabo on Discord, our new team members, CRMN, Ozga, anyone who's been helping in this ecosystem, especially in those 3 months where there wasn't an official team or an official budget to make this project great. We love to see that, and we think it's a really special community that we have here. And also the other projects too. I think everyone building on Avalanche has kind of this special drive and this special bond with each other that you don't really see elsewhere. It's not really competition, it's more cooperation. It's really beautiful to see. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, it's nifty looking in chat at this point. And I feel like, even more than last week in that AMA, there's a lot of familiar faces on here, from various projects on Avalanche. And then, some people I also don't know. But it's neat to look through here and see that we've got, the curiosity of multiple projects kind of looking to see where Pangolin's going.
Okay, so I think I skipped one question here. Let's go back to it. So it's from Mirat. What is the long-term strategy of the team and project? Are we going to see new partnerships, solutions, and new investing channels? Do you have plans for the price and volatility shocks? Okay. Anybody want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So long-term strategy, I'm talking for myself here. Long-term strategy is I want Pangolin at the bare minimum to be a top 100 token. That's my thing, right? So in terms of how we're going to get there, there's a lot of ways we can get there. Partnerships is critical. So we've been meeting so many people, and Ava Labs have been incredibly supportive and introduced us to people. Ava Labs have been really cool. Like you just say, oh yeah, I want to meet these guys, and they hook you up. So partnerships is key, right? We can't, we've got to be careful. We don't try to do everything. I see a lot of projects trying to do that sometimes, and it can make it very hard to iterate and to achieve that. So yeah, lots of new partnerships, lots of new solutions, lots of new investing channels. That's all coming. In terms of price and volatility shocks, this is an interesting one, right? Because pangolins. First of all, we're not allowed talking about price. We can talk about economic principles, but we're not allowed talking about price. But in terms of volatility, we've got to then think. So with volatility, both comes risk and reward. If you want stable, well then you've got to then have it like almost a stable coin mechanism. So this is something that obviously from an economic point of view we're having to discuss. Yeah, it's a tough one. Crypto is volatile. I don't even Bitcoin, which should be theoretically your store of value, is super volatile. I don't think any token or yeah it is immune from that risk. It's just that's just the industry we're in.
Yeah, good answer. And just a reminder that the team, isn't allowed to engage in price talk. So sometimes we'll get questions and we want to answer, we're just not allowed to. So we'll direct you to like a trading channel or to other community members to talk about that stuff. Okay, good question, and thanks for the answer. So the next one is, well, it's just another repeat of Gate says PNG trading is not available in the US. And I just want to recap the answer that I think they're waiting for some documented legal advice from us to open it up to all countries. And that's just kind of how they protect themselves regulation wise.
I actually sent that like probably 5 minutes ago. So I have emailed them and I've had a side chat with Gate while we're doing this. So yeah, all the legal documents are with them. So we're just waiting for them now.
Awesome. Thanks for doing that. Okay. This next question is from Tyrion Lannister. Nice to meet you. What do you think about DeFi Future? Oh, good question. What do you guys think?
I think so. There's actually a new project launching on Avalanche, which you guys should probably check out, called Para Finance, and they've got like a slide deck. Let me see if I can get it up for you guys. And they've actually got a very cool analysis of like the DeFi market compared to traditional market. And it's actually there's a lot of information in there, but they've actually done a great job. I'm going to post it into the chat, so have a look at that. That actually gives some very cool metrics on like how early we are. So basically, like on the first page, they've got like this, like 81 billion is in DeFi market cap, where financial services market cap is 26 trillion. So like we've got a hell of a long growth curve ahead of us, like an incredible growth curve.
Yeah, and I just want to call out, it's, if you think about it, it's not just the financial products themselves, the DeFi projects themselves. It's like, how many people are going to change careers into the peripheral companies too? For example, we're talking to like a US-based payments company, Opolis, who you wouldn't really consider DeFi, but because of DeFi, these kinds of businesses have to spin up to support the infrastructure. And, you can just think of a brand new growing industry. What kind of companies and projects have to spin up to support this as more people move into this, because we do think it is the future of finance for sure. Brandon, did you have any thoughts on this one?
I mean, I got thoughts on a lot of things. Sorting them out's kind of weird. So, I mean, I think that the first tech here was blockchain. And we're still, as the world kind of working on implementations for blockchain. You see cryptocurrency as one of them. And then you've got this concept of DeFi kind of iterating again on top of that. So I really can't tell you what the third or fourth innovation might be, but I definitely see DeFi itself being adopted more widely, where you don't have to go through bridges to go across chains, where you don't have to go through a traditional brick and mortar bank. It's not considered the normal approach anymore. But it's kind of like I think there's a quote somewhere around there where if you asked Henry Ford what he thought people want, it's like, faster horses or something. So you really just don't know what's coming. I'd like to think we're going to be surprised and it's going to make all of our lives better.
Yeah, great answers and good question. It's exciting to think about. Okay, the next one is from Whale Club. Good to have you here, Whale Club. Whale Club works on the Spore project. And the question is, are you willing to move the UI in a direction that would look radically different from Uni and Sushi? And if so, are there sufficient development resources and budget for a major undertaking like that? Harry, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we definitely have budget. So when we first kind of did the proposal with the community, we said anything above 10,000 PNG needs to go through kind of community, or at least be talked about and discussed with the community. We've actually already started this, however. So we've actually got some designs that I need to review, or we all need to review once we're off this call. Yeah, we definitely need to move away from Orange Uniswap. So yeah, definitely. So there's some interesting things there. There's also like there's a lot of cool stuff that I want to include, or we want to include in that. So yeah. Radically different. I mean, from a user experience point of view, I still think there's a lot of improvements we can make in terms of easing people into the platform. And we definitely have so the issue with this and development resources and stuff like this. So budget, yes, we've got budget. I guess the other question sometimes everyone goes, oh, why don't you just hire 20 developers? And I think like my answer to this is like, I've worked on, my background is enterprise implementations of like large scale like ERP manufacturing software across, multinationals. Now, often what happens with those organizations is they just go, oh yeah, we'll just throw a shit ton of people, a lot of people at this problem. And what actually happens is the project actually then ends up going more over budget and gets delayed even further. So like the common analogy is, if you want a baby in a month, you can't just get like 9 women pregnant, right? And there's actually a guy called Fred Brooks, who's like a personal hero of mine, who wrote a book called The Mythical Man Month. And this book actually talks about it very well. It basically talks about how like when you add more people to a project, the communication becomes more difficult to get the communication out to more people. And eventually you get to a point where adding more people doesn't actually make you work faster or get your deadline sooner. It actually makes you slower. And I'm quite a firm believer in Fred Brooks's writings. So we've definitely got budget. We've definitely got resources. We have to do it the correct way. And the correct way is, doing the design up front, making sure that we have user testing, so early stage testing, prototype testing, and then delivering. We've got some features that we want to roll out before that because that takes time. So the major rebrand and the major rework will take a bit of time, but that doesn't stop us from rolling out incremental features in the meantime.
Yeah, that's a great question, and great answer. And we are already engaged with a really good UX design team who's in the wireframing stage, building out concepts and branding and things like that. And my favorite idea that's come out of that so far is like 2 versions of the app. One is the business version, one is kind of more the fun version, so we can cater to all types of users, the pure traders and just the people who want to have fun in DeFi. So yeah, shout out to anyone on the team who's working on the UX. They're doing a great job. So good question. Thanks for that, Well Club. Okay, the next question is from David. Have you considered branching out to other blockchains? Oh, good question. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we've definitely spoken about it. So there's actually 2 parts to this in terms of like other blockchains. There's the token, and then there's the actual DEX, which is the liquidity. So let's break those down into those 2 parts, and then I'll cover both of them. So in terms of the token, I think having our token across blockchain is definitely a good idea. It means we get we create more of a demand because we introduce our token to more users. So that is definitely in the works and something we're discussing. We need to talk about the best technology. There's some technical things we need to consider, token fragmentation, all of these kind of things. We need to make sure. What we don't want to do is we don't want to go, oh yeah, let's have PNG on Phantom, BSC, Matic, everywhere. And then there's like about 100 different versions of PNG and no one knows which one's the official one. So we just need to be careful that we do it correctly, and that we don't then, make mistakes that then we force on our users. So that's the one aspect. That's having our token on different chains. And then there's, do we want to have the DEX cross-chain? And that one gets to be quite an interesting question, right? Because let's look at Sushi, right? Sushi came across onto Avalanche. I don't think anyone uses Sushi on Avalanche. I certainly don't know. Maybe someone does. I don't know that person though. So if we do move the DEX cross-chain, we have to think very carefully and we have to look at partnerships on how do we bootstrap liquidity on those chains so that we're not just a ghost DEX. It's pointless doing all of that engineering effort to move, and then there's no liquidity. So we have to think of incentivized programs. We have to look at a bunch of things in order for us to be a cross-chain DEX. And there's some interesting technical questions to solve if we are to become a truly, and that's becoming more in vogue, right? What they call these multi-chain DEXs. So yeah, we're definitely having those discussions. It's how do we technically do it?
Yeah, great question. That is a good question. Cool. So the next question is from CryptoKitty, and it's more of a statement. We need more developers. Brandon, do you want to comment on this one?
Sure. I enjoy some support. It definitely makes things easier and oftentimes more efficient if you have two different brains attacking a problem, right? You're going to think of different approaches to come at it, and you can figure out which one's better, but you've got more options that could be the one that's best in the end. So right now we've got that short-term roadmap that I've just been tackling everything I can on top of some other stuff that I didn't quite anticipate as much. So Leo's been awesome, Ozka's been awesome, Sabo's been great of gathering feedback and issues from the larger community come through of things that are broken or things that could be fixed or things that are not working for a subset of the users. So I've been doing my best to tackle those as they come in, as well as balancing some of the shorter and the midterm stuff on the roadmap. So of course, more developers help with both of those things. But I want to make sure that, kind of what we talked about earlier with the intrinsic and extrinsic motivations, that we hire devs who are here for the right reasons. So we've got some folks that come in to chat and they'll pop in there. That's the first thing they're looking for is a job, and they could be amazingly talented, and we might need that. But my preference is to look for people who have interest in Pangolin itself first. Someone who's been around in the community, who's engaged, someone that might be more familiar to the community as a whole. I think that would be a much better investment long-term in Pangolin. And really everything that comes through here, I'm trying to figure out what is going to be best for Pangolin. So the same thing for token listings, or you mentioned other blockchains. Like, how does that benefit Pangolin? So for the person who asked that, CryptoKitty, I'm not sure what your background is. If you have some recommendations or yourself, hop in chat. Let's talk.
Cool. Thanks for the answer, Brandon, and good question or good statement. Okay, the next one is from Peter. I just want to do a time check first. So we're at 41 minutes in. We're going to go for an hour, and any questions that we don't get to, we'll answer via chat. So we'll get all the questions answered. Okay, so Peter is asking, are we, Pangolin, and Ava Labs teacher's pet from our perspective? That's an interesting question. Who wants to take this one?
I could take it. I mean that you got to look at human psychology a bit for this. Like, of course, like Ava Labs, they incubated the project. Connor spent countless hours. Drugo spent countless hours working on this. So they're always going to have a lot of affection for the project. I don't really know what teachers pay. I mean, we have a very close relationship with Ava Labs, and they've been incredibly supportive of us. Everything we've asked for them, they've gone above and beyond to help us. So in terms of liquidity, it's I think it's I think sometimes, yeah, teacher's pet, but sometimes I think it's about being pragmatic, right? So it's the highest liquidity on Avalanche, so therefore it comes with certain responsibilities, and it's in their best interest, right? So blockchain's all about incentives, right? It's the whole point of it. So there's a healthy incentive for Ava Labs to look after Pangolin because it has the highest liquidity. There's also a healthy incentive for Pangolin to engage with Ava Labs because they are that together we win. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. If Pangolin doesn't have, and a competitor comes in and has greater liquidity, that dynamic may shift. But yeah, I don't know if it's as simple as teacher's pet, or it's just at the moment it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and a good question too. So another one right after from Peter too is future. Oh, sorry, it's the future, and Pangolin is already a big success. You're looking back on the success of this project and thinking, what are the top 3 things that got us there? Oh, a nice thought experiment question. Who wants to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take it. So, I mean, this is an awesomely worded question. I think looking back from what we already have, some advantages. One big thing is going to be, kind of being that first mover, where we were the first DEX with any amount of surmountable liquidity on Avalanche. I think that plays to your advantage just in itself. I think another one we've got here, of course, is the L1 we're building on, which is going to be awesome compared to any of these other chains. Right? We're here because we think Avalanche is awesome. And thirdly, something on top of that would be a future feature. So we're not talking internally yet about any sort of alternative market making implementation, but that would definitely set you apart should that come. I think in the short term, what we got right now is going to be how we interact with other projects out here to integrate them in there to cement that position, as well as some different methodologies of how we utilize our levers. I think if we could have some new ideas for that, that would set Pangolin apart as well, to the point where we've got other projects coming to fork that and iterate on top of instead of the alternative.
That's a great answer. Thanks for that, Brandon. I just want to touch on what Brandon said about partnering and integrating with other projects. I think that's extremely key for Pangolin, especially since we are the largest project and biggest DEX right now. We talk to native projects that want help getting exposure, liquidity, rewards. We talk to external projects who really want to build on Avalanche. They're looking for footing and for community and to get started. And how successful we are in building these relationships, fostering growth, lifting up projects around us, that's going to determine our own success. So that's something very important to us too. For example, we just did an interview with Frax last week, who really wants to build here. And we're also talking to native projects daily to see, how we can co-market, how we can help. So that's a good question. Harry, did you have any thoughts, or do you want us to move on to the next one?
I think we can move on. I know we're limited time, and I just want to give everyone that asks a question an opportunity for an answer. So I'm happy moving on.
Sounds good. Thanks for that question. So the next one is from Tyrion. Which DeFi is our biggest competitor? Good question. What do you guys think?
I guess, are we talking about layer 1 here? Because, if it's a which DeFi protocol, it's a different question to which DeFi layer 1. So I'm going to assume that we're talking about layer 1s, which is our biggest competitor. So I mean, I know Ava Labs will consistently say that we're not competitors to ETH, we're partners, but I think ETH definitely has the most innovation. And the way I look at it is the most innovation wins, because it becomes a circle, right? You innovate, then it attracts the best builders. The best builders build the best products, and it creates this like cycle, this loop, right? And I think Avalanche is super cool because we have such good tech. We do attract a certain class or type of builder, whereas if you go to BSC, the type of people that build there, it's cash grabs. Let's be brutally honest, right? They're not really people there that are purely there for the tech. They're there to make a quick buck. So I view Ethereum as something that more we should aspire to, which is how do we foster greater innovation within our space?
Yeah, Ethereum, maybe Ethereum 2 might be more of a good comparison with Avalanche. I think people compare everything to Ethereum just because that was really the first platform for smart contracts to really push the DeFi space itself. But looking back, once upon a time, people thought that AOL was going to run the world. And, they had a good run, but, they didn't win in the end. So I think Ethereum has had a lot of really great concepts to push that envelope. And then you've had other projects like Avalanche, or maybe some more closer projects might be the likes of like Polkadot, where you've had those ideas and you can iterate from a fresh start, which oftentimes in development is a lot better, since you don't have to clean things up and refactor it. You can just go from a better implementation.
Yeah, great answers and great question. So we'll move on to the next one. The next question is by CryptoFish, and CryptoFish is the founder of Trader Joe. If you haven't met him, really cool guy, strong developer. And his question is, are there plans to make the PNG token have utility other than for governance? What do you guys think?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I mean, this is such a broad one, right? Because the thing is, so when you say utility, are we talking about like Chainlink's model? I really like Chainlink's model, where it's like, or if you think, so let's talk about the different forms of utility you can have. So you can have utility in terms of a means of exchange. So Chainlinks, that's how Chainlink does it, right? So anytime you use Chainlink's Oracle, you pay a little bit of Link. So the more you use Chainlink's Oracle, the more Link you have to pay, and the more money or revenue they have. So it's quite like a traditional kind of revenue model. L1s have a similar model, right? Avalanche is quite unique, actually. I think it's very smart what they've done. But like you look at Ethereum and then you look at Avalanche, and every time there's gas. So there's utility in terms of paying gas fees. And then also obviously with Avalanche in terms of, if you want to spin up a subnet, you've got to have a validator. So then there's utility that way. In terms of a DEX utility, I've been reading a lot about Vitalik's suggestion for Uni to have a Oracle. That's an interesting approach. But if you think about utility of a DEX, where do you get the most revenue if you think of a traditional revenue source? And it's from the swap fees. You can add other utility there. It's such a broad question, and there's so many cool opportunities in the space. Also, like, I don't know if anyone has actually done it where governance has utility. In and by itself, governance has utility. So if you think about it, if PNG attracts a certain amount of user, a certain amount of liquidity, it's in their best interest for Pangolin to work a certain way, or Pangolin to follow a certain direction. And then there is actually utility in that governance. So let's look at an example, right? So let's say, for example, the core team comes in and they absolutely mess everything up. It's in the users and PNG holders to vote that core team out, because that core team is disrupting and it's damaging Pangolin. So I also think there's some utility from governance. Now, how you actually make that into an economic principle, now that is an interesting question.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And you can tell that Harry thinks a lot about these things and has a lot of experience with these types of mechanisms too. And just want to call out that I think the term governance token gets a bad rap. Governance is valuable in itself, and we definitely want to look at other things other than governance. But governance is a powerful tool in making DeFi, in making decentralized projects like Pangolin possible? So good question. Thanks for that, CryptoFish. Okay, so the time check right now is we have 8 minutes left. We're going to get through a couple more via voice, and then we're just going to hop into chat and start answering them there to be cognizant of everyone's time. These are great questions, by the way. Appreciate all the engagement. Okay, the next question is from Alpha, and it's a bit lengthy, so I'm just going to summarize with how can we protect the ecosystem against whales to prevent manipulation? Does anyone want to take this one?
I'll take it if it's okay. I mean, I think there's a big narrative here. Whales are bad. No, whales are messing. The thing is, without whales providing liquidity, we wouldn't have an effective DEX. So it's quite an interesting one. You see a lot of people saying whales, bad, and then that same person will say, "Well, why don't we have as much TVL as Polygon, or why don't we have as much TVL as Solana, or whatever it is," right? So I don't think that argument's fair, right? Because you need whales to have TVL. You need TVL and volume in order to have successful DEXs that also provides good user experiences. So I think we have to be very careful of this narrative that whales equals bad. I think there's a healthy compromise we should be reaching where, whales provide a valuable service. How do we ensure that service is valuable and does benefit our community?
Yeah, that's a great answer. Brandon, were you going to say something too?
I guess my general thoughts are, whales are all over the place. Whales exist in traditional finance, making deals and providing liquidity for bigger projects. And you might not have as much exposure to what's going on there because the ecosystem is so big, you're not seeing that influence directly in a chart. But Avalanche is still pretty young. And so you can go through, for instance, the on-chain metrics for Pangolin and look at some of the top holders and what they're doing. And that's kind of an insight you've got in the DeFi world. So I'd echo those concerns. If you want low swap fees, you either need a lot of people with small contributions, which is kind of what I like, kind of that distributed, equitable approach, or one or two individuals who have an interest in the project who will provide a bulk of that liquidity, which makes it very easy for everyone to come through and have low swap fees. So they're definitely providing, much needed services to Pangolin, just by nature of being here, providing liquidity, getting the same benefits that everybody else is with swap fees and rewards. So we can't be excluding these individuals. My approach more so would be to build a product that works for them, so they stick around for the same reasons everyone else does.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And just to reiterate, the team's thoughts, whales aren't bad. They're a necessary part of the ecosystem, and they do great things as well. So we just kind of need to learn about how all of that actually works, and us as a team, consider all types of players in the space when we're building our roadmap and product. So that's a really good question. Appreciate that one, Alpha. Okay, the next one, we have 4 minutes left, is from Pablo. And the question is, what's the strategy to develop outreach to enterprise participants in TradFi? TradFi meaning traditional finance. Is it too early to worry about that? What do you guys think?
I could jump in, yeah. I really like traditional. Well, not that I like traditional finance. If I liked it that much, I wouldn't be in DeFi. But I think there's a lot we can learn from traditional finance. So there's a lot of. This is actually a great question. I think this is how we bridge that gap, right? So if you think of TVL and you think of all of that, DeFi is relatively tiny compared to traditional finance. But this is where we need to offer instruments whereby traditional finance comes across, right? So we need to, CryptoFish actually mentioned this within his Twitter thread. derivatives, futures, options, perpetuals, perps. These are traditional financial instruments that traditional finance has used. Hedging, foreign exchange hedging. So how do you hedge against risk? I definitely think we need to do a lot of that stuff to reach out to traditional finance. How we do it, that's the question. But it's something that I've been thinking about. How do we engage a quant, right? Because in traditional finance, a lot of these firms, what they do is they hire quants, and then those quants then come up with their strategies. So how do we get that type of person to come across into DeFi and then, encourage quants to come work on our protocols? And that's already happening. But I think it's going to be a bit of an arms race, if I'm being perfectly honest. So it's something we definitely have to look at.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And, really good question about how do we get people who've never used crypto or are skeptical to come in here, install MetaMask, start swapping on Pangolin, right? I think everyone listening and everyone in the chat is very comfortable with that already. But for a lot of people in the world, it's a foreign concept. And, how do we bridge that? So, it's about education. It's about making people very comfortable. And like Harry said, it's about having the right tools and infrastructure in place, so it's not a huge effort to get into here. So good question. I think it's not just our project; it's Ava Labs. It's every project thinks about this kind of stuff. Okay, so we're at 58 minutes in. We're going to take one more question, and then we're just going to switch to answering questions in the chat. And I will post a transcript and a recording of this for people who didn't catch the whole thing or just want to go back and review. Okay, the next question is from Salim. And that's the last voice question we're going to take. What do you think about changing incentivized pools? Let me give a little more context. So they're saying that it doesn't make sense to give incentives to pairs with low volume. It's necessary to remove incentives for pairs with low volume. And we should remove these. I think that's the gist of the question. What do you guys think?
So there's a couple different approaches to what the purpose of rewarded pools are. One approach, and I think the first approach, is that a rewarded pool should be given to bootstrap initial liquidity. So there's enough liquidity is in the pool to provide and facilitate swaps, which creates volume, which creates swap fees, which then encourages more liquidity. And that's more of a sustainable cycle that way. Another approach is literally a reward. So the pools that are more beneficial to Pangolin should be given rewards to thank them for being so beneficial to the system. And there's also a third approach where you give rewards everywhere, saying, Pangolin or PNG is a governance token. And so anybody using the protocol should be given PNG to represent that their stake in a system, they can vote on it. So I lean probably more towards the first one, that we have this lever of rewards, which can be used to take new projects, as well as bootstrap that liquidity to a certain point. So, I've heard this concern a few times in varying capacities, that PNG is being given to pools that they don't agree with, or pools that don't have a presence on Avalanche now or yet. And I guess my concern for removing that reward is you risk losing all liquidity in those pools. That's just something to consider. Like, for instance, ETH might not be building on Avalanche, obviously, but there's plenty of people who have migrated off of other networks and made Avalanche their home, where they still want to invest in some of the bigger market cap cryptos like ETH or Bitcoin, maybe wrapped Bitcoin. And I want to make sure there's still an avenue to do that on Avalanche. And so providing rewards to those things, those pools, is one way to incentivize that.
Great answer. What about you?
Sorry. Great answer, Brandon. I agree. I mean, there's also strategic reasons for certain pools that I think a lot of kind of retail traders might not necessarily know, right? So Some pools we need high liquidity. US dollar as an example, so USDT and DAI. We had a very good meeting with the Banky team, and some of their stuff relies on having very deep liquidity pools to increase the safety of our ecosystem. So sometimes we have to make strategic decisions to incentivize certain pools for the overall health of our ecosystem. And this comes down into that public good territory. Is Pangolin a public good that then serves the greater Avalanche ecosystem? And if it is a public good, then we have to choose the rewards based upon what brings the greatest reward to our ecosystem.
Great answers and great question. I'm sure it's on a lot of people's minds. What kind of rewards and pairs make sense, and just to reiterate what Brandon and Harry say, we have to kind of think about strategically what makes sense for the entire ecosystem. Okay, so that's the last question we're going to take over voice today. Really appreciate everyone joining and talking to the team. We had a blast. We're going to continue answering questions in chat, and I'm going to post a recording and a transcript once I have those ready. So any last thoughts, Harry and Brandon?
No, thanks for the questions. I'm loving the questions. I think the quality of questions has been awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, I try and take this as a two-way. When we're trying to give our opinions, you can pick our thoughts, but I also look at these questions of the state of the community, trying to get a feel for what the concerns going around are, so we can be aware and kind of, stay in sync with that. So thanks for showing up. It's good for everyone.
Okay, we'll wrap it up then. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers, everyone.